Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another one of NCRO's virtual tri-annual breakfast meetings. We're hoping to do our next meeting scheduled in May to be in person, but the board will make that final decision as we get closer to that date. Let's see now. All right, so my name is Howard Barron. On our agenda today will be a brief update report from our president, Jay Kuhnie, and then a fascinating presentation by Sanding Monroe, founder and CEO of Monroe and Associates, on the electric vehicle revolution that is going right now in the auto industry. So please stick around after Sandy's talk and a brief lunch break for the Insurance Committee sponsored presentation by Via Benefits, which is FCA's new administrator for our HRAs and RICA accounts. But before we start, my good friend Dale, who is in vacation in Hawaii right now, just told me that he saw an old lady pulled over on the side of the road for speeding. "Is there a problem, officer?" she said. "Ma'am, you were speeding," said the officer. "Oh, I see. Can I see your license, please?" "I'd give it to you, but I don't have one." "Don't have one?" "No, I lost it 4 years ago for drunk driving." "I see. Can I see your vehicle registration papers, please?" "I can't do that." "And why not?" "I stole this car." "Stole it?" "Yes, and I killed and hacked up the owner." "You what?" "His body parts are in plastic bags in the trunk if you want to see." The officer looked at the woman and slowly backed away from the car and quickly called for backup. Within 5 minutes, 5 police cars came screaming down the street and circled the car. The senior officer slowly approached the car, clasping his half-drawn gun. "Ma'am, can you please step out of your vehicle?" The woman stepped out of the car. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Officer Harris just told me that you have stolen this car and murdered the owner." "Murdered the owner?" "Yes, can you please open the trunk of your car?" The woman opened up the trunk and revealed nothing but an empty trunk. The senior officer was quite stunned. "He also claimed that you do not have a driver's license." The woman dug into her handbag and pulled out her license and handed it to the officer. The officer examined it carefully and looked quite puzzled. "Thank you, ma'am. Officer Harris told me that you didn't have a license, that you stole the vehicle, and you murdered and hacked up the owner." "I bet the liar told you that I was speeding too." "Don't worry, Mike Cipineri will be back for our next meeting." As always, we want to thank all of you for continuing the support of NCRO. Over 180 members registered, and I think our count now is up to maybe 120 people today, which is wonderful. We also want to thank you for your dues payments, and in particular, thank you for your patience. While the majority of the dues renewal payments were received and processed by the end of December, we did process the remainder of the checks and the PayPal payments during January. Another dues reminder is going out within the next few weeks as another reminder of those who haven't paid their dues yet. And remember, dues are still a bargain at only $25 a year, or about $2 a month. And your NCR dues includes your membership in NLRN, which Jay will talk about in a minute. Also, remember to please continue to support our retiree-friendly dealers who advertise on our website and the homepage. They are not only a source of revenue for our organization, especially during the pandemic, but is a good way for us to do our part to keep our dealerships and Chrysler healthy. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our president of NCRO, Mr. Jay Kuhnie.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate the Howard stepping in for Mike Cipineri. Howard, I do believe that your joke was probably better than Mike's, and your delivery was clearly better than Mike's has been. So please don't tell Mike if he's listening on the webinar. I do appreciate you for standing in for Mike when he's on vacation, and for Gordy for standing in for Dale as he's whale watching in Hawaii. And my welcome again. I just wanted to give you a little update about webinars. These are very difficult to do, not only to process with all the technology and technical things we have to go through to pull one of these together, all of us in different locations and trying to coordinate all that. And Gordy is doing a great job with that today. But it really makes it very difficult to present. When you're trying to present, it's really much better to be able to see your eyes and to tell whether or not I'm boring you with my presentation, so I can either change it midstream or whatever. And unfortunately, all I can see is slides in my computer screen. So bear with us as we do that. Unfortunately, we had to make the call about 30 days ago to change from the in-person meeting to this webinar. Because if you remember back 30 days ago, Omicron was running rampant in the state of Michigan. We had like 14,000 cases a day, and so we decided it was probably prudent to change to the webinar. Had we known today where we've been, we probably would not have done that, but we still think that was the prudent decision. So bear with us today, and we hope that we will give you good information. And unless something dramatically changes, I know Howard said our next meeting is triennial meeting is on May the 18th. Unless something is dramatically changes, excuse me, between now and then, we plan on doing that one in person. And I will announce to you today that we do have a good speaker for that meeting. Ralph Gilles has agreed to be our speaker at the meeting on the 18th. So put that on your calendar. If you've been at one of our meetings before where Ralph spoke to us, he's, besides being a phenomenal designer and leader of the Stellantis organization, he is a spectacular speaker. And one of the reasons I really like Ralph coming to speak to us is because he tends to say things that he probably isn't supposed to say. And we get some really good insight insight behind the scenes of what's going on at Stellantis. So put that on your calendar. And we're looking forward to seeing Ralph in May. I just want to give you a little update. If you've read the newsletter we sent out a couple of weeks ago, hopefully this won't be too much of a repeat of that information, but I thought it was very important for us to kind of give you a combination of an update between the NCRO and the NRLN, which, as Howard said, that you, as part of your membership of the NCRO, you're also a member of the NRLN. And it's an organization that we're very close to. Two of us on the board from the NCRO are also on the board of the NRLN. Myself and Dan Oliver is also a member, and then Deb Morissette is probably more involved than any of us in terms of her involvement with the NRLN, because she's very involved in the legislative organization within the NRLN and studying all the bills that relate to seniors and to pensioners. So I want to just give you a little bit of an update. First of all, I'm going to talk just briefly about the VIA benefits transition. You can hear from them later. Pension overpayment and recovery, which we've talked about a lot of times, a little bit on annuity protection, a little bit on Medicare Advantage versus Medicare, and then something that's kind of new going on there, which you might have heard about, which is direct contract entities. First of all, VIA benefits transition. As I said, you'll hear after the major presentation in a little break, you'll hear from Stephen Durso from the Willis Towers Watson organization that's over the VIA benefits group. And you'll learn more about their organization and how best to maneuver through that to get your money back from the organization. So stay tuned. I think it'll be a great presentation. However, when we look at the transition, if you remember the transition that we went through about 5 years ago, it was let's say not quite as smooth as one would like. And frankly, I think the transition this time was to VIA benefits was really pretty smooth. Not that we didn't have some issues, and there still were some issues. And the IC's been working with Stellantis on those issues. And recently, in early January, the IC sent out an email to everyone, giving you a kind of a heads up on the issues and how things are going, and how to have some helpful hints in terms of being able to submit for payments. You'll hear more about that from Stephen today. But I think in general, if you look at this transition versus the previous transition, this was way better than that. So stay tuned. Again, said there's still some issues, but they seem to be being worked out relatively simple. If you have any issues, excuse me, that come up, please contact the IC, the Insurance Committee, and you'll see the Insurance Committee at ncro.org, INSCOM@ncro.org, and we can help you out with those. But hopefully, with Stephen's presentation today, that will make it even more simple. Next, want to talk a little about a couple of issues that we've talked about in fact, the pension overpayment issue seems like we've been talking about it for 5 or 6 years. But it is something that's very important, and in fact has affected some of our members. There are 2 bills in Congress. We talked a little about this. The 2 bills in Congress. One is HR 2954, and that's Neal and Brady bill. You'll notice that on these bills, it's bipartisan. So you got Neal, Democrat from Massachusetts, and Brady, Republican from Texas. And we very much support that bill. And then in the Senate, S-1770 is the Cardin, who's a Democrat from Massachusetts, and Portman, who's a Republican from Ohio, have come together to put that bill in Congress. And the great part about it is that the language in both of those bills, both in the House bill and the Senate bill, is consistent in terms of the improvement in pension overpayment issues. And what that recovery language basically says is that, and I'll kind of do this in a little bit, not in the order that you'll see it on the screen, but we argued for a long time trying to get absolutely no look back and no ability for the companies to recover, but unfortunately trying to compromise with a whole group of organizations, business, labor, EBSA, which is the group that manages the Erisa law, and ourselves in Pension Rights Center. We were able to get a compromise and allow only a 3-year look back. And it's very important because currently a company can go back, and in fact, some of the individuals that happened to fall into this category back in 2016, that's how long we've been working on this, was some of them had a look back of 15 years and were recovering for 15 years of overpayment. So this one is a 3-year look back only. And previously there was no inability for a timing for the companies to collect. In fact, most of the time they look for the money back in 18 months, even though it might have been overpaid for 15 years. So in this language, there's a 10-year payback. So they can only look back 3 years, and they can only collect over a 10-year period. So we're doing everything we can do to try to eliminate the pain for a pensioner whose is being looked at for recovering of overpayment. No interest, which is another key issue, because the longer the period of time, and if they were to charge interest, that would increase the amount of the payback. And then, in fact, if something happens to the pensioner that would pass away, that there is no recovery from the beneficiary. So, excuse me, we think we've got a pretty good compromise and something that would be very beneficial to the retirees. And our goal this year, excuse me, is to push to get the approval for these in Congress. And we really believe that there's a real possibility, probably really real probability that will happen this year, because there's real impetus in Congress to do some things for retirees. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know a little more about that. The next one is annuity protection. And some of you that are listening to us today, and some of our members have been affected by the company annuitizing them. And that seems like not too big of a deal. If I go back and do this, hang on, sorry, it seems like not too big of a deal, because when the company's annuitizing, when the ones that's Chrysler, FCA, Stellantis, excuse me, have done, they've also protected the annuitized pensioner by putting the assets that were transferred to the insurance company in a separate account. So therefore, if that insurance company was going out of business, that these assets would not be affected and nothing would happen. However, there's many other people that isn't normal in terms of doing annuities. So, and there's a huge increase, and we think that with the strength of the stock market and the pensions being more fully funded because of that increase in stock market value, that the amount of annuities being purchased in the next year or two will increase dramatically. So key issue is once that happens, the annuitants lose their Erisa and PBGC protection, and they then become covered by state insurance, which is somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 for a lifetime. And in general, that may not do very well to protect individuals. Now, interestingly, we've talked to the PBGC, and the PBGC thinks, excuse me, that the reason that this isn't that big of a deal for what they believe is because the way the insurance organizations are regulated, and that no insurance companies have gone out of business in doing these activities. However, we don't think that's a very sound way to protect ourselves. So we've been developing legislative language to update Erisa to protect pensioners who are affected by these annuitizations. We're working with the Pension Rights Center, which we did on the pension overpayment issues, and we're developing a consortium of senior advocacy groups to push for this change in Erisa law. We've been in early contact with congressional representatives to develop the support in a similar manner that we did with the pension overpayment issue. And to just give you a little bit of a background on what that language would be is, we believe that the Erisa law should contain a provision that says that if a company de-risks their legacy liabilities through an annuitization with an insurance company or any other organization, that reinsurance should be purchased as a part of that sale and annuitization. That would provide the same protections that the individuals would have under Erisa law, which basically means that what we're trying to accomplish is that there would be no reduction at all in any of the payments if the insurance company would ultimately go out of business. So that's the language that we're working on. And early on, we seem to have gotten some pretty good feedback from certainly the Pension Rights Center, and also in preliminary conversations we've had with the congressional representatives, that they see the issue, and I think that the ground is fertile for us to make some headways into that. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated on what we're doing with that. The third one I want to talk about was Medicare Advantage versus Medicare. And what I want to caution everybody is, I know this is a very sensitive issue because many of our members have Medicare Advantage programs, and many have Medicare programs. In fact, approximately 40% of the individuals who are in the 65 or above category have a Medicare Advantage program, and about 60% have original Medicare. And what I want to say is, we're not trying to do anything to hurt Medicare Advantage, but for those who are on Medicare, quite frankly, Medicare Advantage programs have increased benefits over what Medicare individuals have. Things like vision, dental care, paying for trips to the doctors, and those types of things. And all of that cost and the money that's paid to the Medicare Advantage insurance companies comes out of the Medicare trust fund. And in fact, Medicare pays more money to Medicare Advantage than they do to the Medicare beneficiary. So this is no attempt at all to affect Medicare Advantage or to reduce any of the coverage of Medicare Advantage. We don't want to do that at all, but we do think that there should be some equality in terms of the coverage, that Medicare people should be able to get the same benefits as the Medicare Advantage individuals. So we're just working on that, sort of behind the scenes, trying to equalize things and to ensure that everybody, whether they're on Medicare Advantage or Medicare, get excellent coverage. Last thing I want to talk about is something that's called direct contract entities, and that's something that's very, very new, and many of you may not even know what that means or what it entails. It was a test that was started by the CMMI, which is the Center for Medicare Innovation, that was started several years ago in an attempt to try to reduce costs. At least that's what it was started supposedly as a test to try to reduce the cost of healthcare. And it was started in December, or it was like late December or January of a year ago, under the Trump organization. And it's one of the things that has been continued under the current Biden administration. And I'll read you what from the Center for Medicare Services.gov. Comes right from what is published in their website. And this is what it says: the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, and for Medicare and Medicare Innovation, the Innovation Center, developed the direct contracting model, professional and global options to test financial risk sharing arrangements to reduce Medicare expenditures while preserving or enhancing the quality of care furnished to beneficiaries. No, excuse me. Now, I don't want to cause any undue angst for any individuals, but this is something that's kind of been under the radar. Not many people really know about it, and we in the NRLN have just started trying to get our hands around this and what does it mean for seniors and retirees. Because it could affect any senior who is on original Medicare to start with. And what happens is if your doctor joins a group that belongs to a DCE, and these DCEs are purchased by anybody. I mean, they have some financial organizations that have purchased them, insurance companies have purchased them. And if your doctor joins that group, you may be included in a DCE. And what will happen is you'll receive a letter from the organization that says that you're now part of this organization. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically, that means that you become basically a part almost of an HMO, so to speak. And the concern we have in an early on investigation of this is that it seems like the incentive that's given to DCEs is primarily to reduce costs, not necessarily, while it says in the government information, to preserve and enhance the quality of care. It looks to us like the emphasis tends to be more on cost reduction than on quality of care. And for us, that's a huge red flag and a concern that while these companies may be being more financially driven than care driven, because they can keep 40% of their profits, which is way more than Medicare and Medicare Advantage organizations. So I just think that it's something that we need to be alerted to. I don't think it's anything anybody should panic about, but it's something that we're concerned about it as an organization between the NRLN and the NCRO on what that future means for Medicare, Medicare Advantage, and does that mean that we're going to go to privatization of our health care, which causes us some concern. So it's in the early stages of us doing the investigation. If you want to learn more about it, I would direct you for a very, very good update, is to go to the NRLN website, which is nrln.org. And on the homepage, you'll see several articles that you can click on, and then you can read those articles. And they're from many organizations, many doctors and other individuals that are providing information as to what these are about and some concerns, positives and negatives about these organizations. And then also on that homepage, you'll see a podcast. You could click on the podcast that is done by Bill Catterite, and you will be able to see and hear from him and the concerns about it, and also from another individual who's very involved in the understanding of the DCEs. So if you're interested, I suggest you try to go there again to nrln.org and peruse on the homepage, and you can learn more about DCEs. So stay tuned. We're heavily involved in this and trying to decide what's the best course of action for us as an organization. So that's enough for my update. Again, I want to thank you guys for your support. Without the support of our members, both financially and emotionally, psychologically for us, we wouldn't be able to do the things for you that we're attempting to do. I will throw a pitch in at the end for the insurance committee, headed by Rich Brown. Howard Barron is a part of that, and other individuals within the organization are part of that. The IC does tremendous work for you as members. They work tirelessly to try to do everything they can do for you to provide information and knowledge, situations, things that are going on, and most importantly, they work for every individual member that has an issue, and they come in and try to help solve that for you. So again, I appreciate the IC and the organization, and again, thanks you for your support. And now it's my pleasure to turn it back to Howard to introduce our speaker. Thanks a lot.
Jay, this is Gordy. I had a question coming in from the web.
Sure.
The question is, if Stellantis offers an annuity to a pensioner, must it be accepted, or can one decline and continue on the pension?
No, the federal government in Erisa law allows individual companies to annuitize pensioners that are in process or in the process of being paid, and they're in service. So there is nothing that can be done about it if the organization picks and chooses. In fact, they can annuitize everybody within the pension plan, or they can select within that pension plan, which is in fact FCA. Stellantis hasn't done it since they've taken over, but FCA did it twice, once with Athene and once with Prudential. And they selected a group of our retirees out of the total group. So they're allowed to do that, and it's according to our federal government and it's ERISA law, it's allowable. In fact, there has been in some instances some lawsuits that were put against organizations that selected. In fact, the last one was Verizon, where they selected a certain group out of it, and they went to court and lost in court. So yes, you have no choice. If they select that, then you're automatically put in as annuity or paid for by generally insurance company. That's the reason we're trying to do work on the protection of annuitants. So heretofore, we have had no issues with the insurance companies who have purchased the annuities for going out of business. So therefore, everybody has received their payments as they were when they were paid by the company. But the issue becomes, if something happens, we do not believe, we think there's questions as to the level of support or protection that the annuitor has. So therefore, we want to make sure that the annuitor, the person who's annuitized, is completely protected as they would have been with PBGC.
Any more questions, Gordy? Seems not. Okay, let me go forward then.
Nothing yet. Go ahead, Howard.
Very good. Well, thank you, Jay, for the props for the insurance committee. Couldn't do what we do without the support, the ongoing support of the board. So thank you very much for that.